Hey everybody, it's Hank Linderman. Welcome to Getting Angry. As you can see by the picture, our special guest today is going to be Chris Falson. And Chris is a dear friend of ours from Australia who lives in the United States now, and he's someone that I lean on when I need some guidance. And I think you're really going to enjoy the conversation we're going to have, although I don't know what we're going to say, so it should be fun. I'm Hank Linderman. I'm running for Congress here in Kentucky's 2nd District. I'm coming to you from the lovely Falls of Rough, Kentucky, here in Grayson County, here in the 2nd District. This is Friday, July 31st. You know, I think a lot of us thought we would be finished with the coronavirus already, but obviously that has not happened. It's good to see Billy McNichol here. He's asking you all to please share the broadcast, give some angels their wings, and we are hoping, we're counting on your help because we spread the word further and further, and it really helps the campaign, but it also helps some of the ideas we're talking about. For example, the contract for rural and working America. Mary Richardson is here as almost always. Mark Andes is here as always. You guys are, I know they're going to share. So I think I want to start right in playing you something I called today Australia Chimes In. So I think we should listen to a little bit of a video that comes from a company called The Juice Media. They do fantastic videos. Cindy Braun is here, and Cindy says she's sharing, so that's fantastic. Anyway, The Juice Media has been doing ads about... sorry about that. Someone is calling me, but I'm not answering the phone while I'm talking with you all. Darren Dow is here. Darren, you're going to share, right? Mark Andes again. Great to see you. Mary Richardson's going to share. Anyway, The Juice Media does very entertaining ads. Barbara Tichy is here. Barbara, one of my favorite people on this earth. Whoops, oh, I'm sorry. Barbara, please share. I'm going to play you a little bit of Chris Falson's music. He's not going to be able to perform today, but I'll play you a little bit in a little bit. But first, let's watch this video. It's kind of self-explanatory. The Juice Media has been doing wonderful videos about politics in Australia, and they have finally chimed in on the United States. So let's see what they have to say.
Hello, I'm from the U.S. government with an update on our pandemic response. In the space of just a few months, our "don't worry bro, it's just the flu" policy has gotten a shit ton of you killed. Some say this tragedy was inevitable, but actually, studies show that if we'd simply responded like other governments who listen to scientists instead of Chuck Woolery and the My Pillow guy, we could have prevented almost all of those deaths. Unfortunately for you, the amount of responsibility we take in doing our job comes to approximately fuck all, which is why we got more of you killed than 50 9/11s. Trump 2020. With a president like this, who needs terrorists? As part of our distract from...
that video goes on for another several minutes. It's quite entertaining. I apologize if those of you, to those of you who are listening with your children, because of course some naughty words were used, but here we are. We're in a terrible, terrible situation. And in fact, I think a lot of us are having trouble dealing with it. But look, let's do what we got to do here. Let's have a look at some numbers. And the first one we're going to look at, of course, is always from worldometers.info. And the USA, once again, we've got nearly 70,000 new cases, nearly 1,500 new deaths. Look at that. We are over 155,000 deaths. And I want you all to remember, if we had done what Australia had done, if we had done that, nearly 99% of us might not have had to die. If we'd done what Germany had done, we might have only 70% of us might still be alive. And we've had a complete breakdown in handling of the coronavirus, and we still are not ready to do the right thing, which of course is to go Godzilla on the virus. We'll get into that later. Well, let's get back to some numbers. We're still looking at the U.S. and these terrible numbers we're seeing. Let's look at the top 11 in the United States. California still has the most cases, but Florida has the most amount of new cases. And And Texas is number 2. Texas has the most amount of new deaths. This is just terrible. So let's have another look. This is Kentucky. Notice Kentucky, 659 new cases. I believe we've had one day that was worse than that. So we're just doing a terrible, terrible job, and I'm not sure what it's going to take. The obvious thing to do is shut the country down for a couple of months to pay everybody to stay home. This is what Canada did. They paid everybody $2,000 a month, and everybody's job was to stay home. Mary likes the Godzilla noise. Yeah, I like it too. I worked on that noise yesterday just for you, Mary. But right now, I want to play you a little bit of music from Chris Falson. I want you to get a look at him. And here he is, and I'm going to play you part of one of his songs.
Even when the sun goes down on everything that you and I believe in, we hold on. And even though the darkness falls around us and we cannot see the light, we hold on.
All right, that's just a beautiful song. That's Chris singing that, of course. So I'm going to reach out to Chris right now. Let's see if he will answer the phone. And here he comes, hopefully. Oh, I meant to have Chris in the... See if I can do this. I can't quite do it.
Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning, Chris. How are you?
I'm pretty well, and you?
Well, you know, that's a dangerous question these days. We talk about that all the time. You know, we're so used to saying, how are you? And expecting someone to say fine. And it doesn't always work like that, does it?
Well, I didn't want to tell you the truth. I just thought that's not really a good moment to say. Yes, it's like saying, you know, I love you, man. In LA, you know, everybody loves everybody. And nobody does anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah. How are you doing?
I'd have better weeks, I think. You know, as I told you the other day, one of my friends passed away this week from COVID. So that, you know, makes the whole thing feel a lot closer than just some news report or, you know?
Yes, exactly.
But, yeah.
And
so,
you've had, I think you mentioned this morning that you've had something like 3 people that you were connected with pass away in the last 10 days.
Yeah. Some closer than others, you know, friendship-wise. So, but they all hurt. Or you know, last week's one was a very good friend of a very good friend, and they got me involved a little bit as she was in the hospital. And I have a song called "Breathe In, Breathe Out." And she was struggling with her oxygen, so they played that song to her nonstop in hope that would, you know, play some role in her wellness. But she'd passed away. And I think that one I felt more the grief from my friends who worked so hard and spent so much time with the family. But this week's one was a lot closer to home because this particular person, Chuck, his name was, he helped me move here. As you can tell, I'm not from around these parts. I came from Australia in '93, and he helped me get my visa and all that kind of stuff. So he played a big part in get a record deal and all that kind of stuff, promoted my songs around America. So, yeah,
and
it's strange.
I think I need to explain to everybody just a little bit. Chris has a career as a singer-songwriter and performer, a wonderful musician. He comes from a musical family. And if you are a part of a church and you've got a worship team, you have probably performed some of Chris's songs. And some of you are probably performing them every weekend in church, even if you're holding your services online. And, you know, Chris, I think you know that when I get into a corner, I'm often calling you for a little bit of guidance. And I remember calling you once and telling you that I was going to be doing this, that I was going to be running for Congress. And you had a Bible verse that you mentioned, which was, without leadership, the people suffer. I think I've got it right.
That's good. It's close. Yeah. Without vision, it's a bunch of different versions of it, but without a vision, people perish is one of them. And, so I encouraged, I thought it was great that you're running. What every community, every government needs good people and when I mean a good person to me is someone that listens to other people and loves other people. And so you've shown me all those things in my life. So yeah, it could be great if Congress was full of Hank Lindermans in different versions of age and color and all that stuff.
We are going through some big changes here in the United States, and you've witnessed some of it. Coming from another nation and coming to the United States and seeing what a unusual collection. We're not really united exactly, are we? We're 50 states, and each state is almost its own little country.
Yeah, that's how I see it. I mean, that's dangerous for me because I'm a foreigner, and I say things carefully because sometimes people interpret that as like, how dare you say that, go back to your own country. But I very much feel like an American. I've been here for 27 years, and I don't intend leaving. My two sons have, growing families here and very much committed. I have, all my friends are here and stuff. So I feel like I can say things like that. But yeah, in my travels, because I've traveled pretty much everywhere in America, is that it's got some united aspects, very, very patriotic, and we're in this together. But really, culturally, and right now, the spotlight is on how disparate and how different people are. I think some good things can come out of that, but I think many Americans are naive to the fact that they think it's united, but it's not. Yeah.
And it does seem like our divisions are being exploited now by various leaders. President Trump, of course, and whenever we say President Trump's name, we play the Wilhelm scream. I hope that's okay with you.
Yeah. I've told you before that when we have dinner parties, or we used to have dinner parties before COVID, if you mentioned the T word, you had to put $10 in the glass ball.
Yes.
Please don't. We don't want to talk about that. And at the end of the night, usually $100 in there. So,
oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Today, yesterday, President Trump was talking about delaying the election, which of course he has no power to do, and he's doing everything he can to convince everyone that this will not be a fair election, that it'll be a crooked election. I have never seen anything like this. Have you? And we talked earlier. I don't believe I've ever run into this level of. I'm trying to use a kind word. He misrepresents everything. He misrepresents what his true motives are. He misrepresents the truth constantly, and is manipulating people kind of from top to bottom.
Yeah, I'm an apolitical person in some ways. I think I don't trust any politician. I don't think he's really a politician. I think he's an opportunist, and he grabbed this opportunity, and he's very good at bullshit. Is the only word I can think of. He's really good at it. I wouldn't want to play poker with him. But, he'd have printed the cards, and he'd paid off the dealer, and so there's no way you could beat him in his own game. I think the puzzling thing is that, it's like the king with no clothes on story. Is I can't just work out how many people buy it. That's the funny thing, or strange thing.
Well,
but, if you really want to believe in an ideology, sorry to interrupt you, the evangelical side, because I connected a bit to that, sort of wanting to believe that God put someone there. So when you have preconceived beliefs, and that could be this is true for anybody. You want to believe that, let's say, the Democrats want to believe that Joe Biden's going to be great, whatever it is. If you sort of make up your mind before it happens, and then when things go wrong, now you're being challenged because of what you believe. And then people, no, he's not really like that. He didn't really do the pussy thing. No, people are lying. That's because you're kind of holding on to what you're going to believe. And I think that's where also Christianity in America is struggling, because a lot of people don't really know what they believe. They believe what someone told them to believe. Under pressure, that sort of doesn't look good or come across well. So anyway, I went down a rabbit hole there.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, I have to confess, yesterday I was spending time, by the way, Billy McNichol says he's been put in Facebook jail for sharing too quickly. Billy, how long are you in jail? Let us know. So that means we need you all to, make up the difference, please, and be sure that you share and get the word out. Anyway, yesterday, with the news that President Trump was suggesting that we should just delay the election, which of course he has no power to do, and of course he can't do it. If anything, the election needs to be held sooner. If we were going to change the date, I think we'd all like to do it tomorrow and move on with this, but we're just going to have to get on through it. But I have to confess that I got kind of downhearted about it, and that's when my fears start to build up. And I wondered how you deal with fear when you start to get overwhelmed by fear over things that are beyond your control, like this.
Yeah, okay, so I've never really, up until about a year ago, had some stuff happen in my life. I never had anxiety issues. All of a sudden, I did. And now I have empathy for people who do get very fearful or afraid. Up until I never really did. So anyway, I have a practice that I do. And one of the things is I turn off all that crap. I stop watching it, stop listening to it. I don't enter the Facebook world. I know we're in there right now, but I get away and create space. And one of the first things I do is I just go back to a safe place. It's a therapy kind of trick. And safe place to me is where I grew up as a kid. I grew up near a bay, not unlike where you are right now, Hank. And it was, I could walk down that little beach and skip stones with my grandfather and stuff. So I just take myself back there. And I have a thing. If I start smiling from a memory, then I know I'm in a safe place. And I just stay there in my imagination. And that's often a prayer thing too. I just ask God to come be with me in this place. And I find that alleviates the prayers. And also in that space, probably I start getting some wisdom about the situation in life. And part of the wisdom for me in recent times is to not to engage too much every day in the news cycle. I might wait 3 days and come back as I figure if something really bad happens or, cataclysmic, someone will text me and let me know. My son, when they had a lockdown in California, when we had a lockdown, I should say, Karen and I, we didn't know. We hadn't been engaged. And then Sam texts us, we're locked down tonight. Oh, we are? Oh, okay. It seems strange and like I'm an alien or something, but I just don't do well in the fear department or the anxiety department if I'm only listening and watching news. So I just divorce myself for a day or two, and then that seems to work for me. Maybe everybody can't do that, but that's how I survive.
Mary Richardson has a question for you, and she says, Chris Falson, who has been your spiritual inspiration?
Well, you're in trouble there, aren't you? That's the case. Is that a question for me or you?
Say that again?
Is that a question for me? Is that a question or a statement?
Oh, it's a question for you. Mary Richardson, who's here every day, said, who has been your spiritual inspiration?
Oh, I see. Okay. Sorry. In recent times, this is a discovery for me because I was raised as an atheist and entered the church, entered and re-entered several times. And so I was never know anything about Catholic faith at all. But I discovered Thomas Merton several years ago, and he has a book called New Seeds of Contemplation. And I find him the most inspiring person. It's almost like when I'm reading that book, I feel like I'm sitting next to him. And it's time, even though that was written in the 50s, I really feel like it's for now, for me. And in some ways it takes some of the wisdom from the Desert Fathers, which is the 6th century. I think that's correct.
Mm.
And it's much about being quiet and still, and then also understanding that there's a battle inside me. I think this is like when you see like let's say, I'll say the word Trump, you can press that button now. Okay, so when we're in a spot like that, fortunately I'm not in that spotlight right now, so if you don't see all my faults, but we all get to see that person's faults. And Thomas Merton addresses the issue about there's the false self, which he calls the ego, and then there's your soul. And there's always a battle. The battle is when the false self wants somebody to love you and think you're great and give you, I love what you're doing, Hank, this is awesome. And that feeds sometimes a bad part of us. But the soul, the soul person really knows what we need. We need quietness. We need space. We need to love our neighbor. We need to share. So there's a constant battle going on. So I find that Thomas Merton helps me perhaps to balance that out. And in a funny way, I feel more Catholic than anything right now. That would probably make some people feel crazy, but I really, really like the wisdom that he offers.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, and maybe if you'll send me a link to that book, I'll post it in the comments. So
yeah.
There have been some discussions lately that I've been part of there's a recognition dawning on people all over the world, but particularly Americans, I think, that our world is not going to go back exactly to the way it was before the pandemic. It's not going to go back as if this didn't happen, and in fact, there's a possibility that we will have continuing pandemics, and that this pandemic may be around. We still haven't gotten a vaccine for the virus. We have hopes that we will. We haven't really gotten treatments for it yet, although we've had a guest named Dr. Greg Adams who's explained they are learning how to keep us alive. So even as the cases increase, people are staying alive. But we're a long way from finished with this. I personally believe this was a test not just for our healthcare system, but a test for our political system and a test for us as a nation. So I believe the United States is going to be different, but it's going to be a very difficult process getting there. And you had a comment about the direction you think things might go. So do you want to fill in your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, so I think, we said before, I said before about how disparate it can be. The 50 states are different, and there's more than that, really. But what I'm noticing now in conversations, because I'm in constant contact with people in New Jersey and Texas and North Carolina and around the world, is that I'm discovering that people are becoming a little bit more open to other people's way of life. Even so that I just feel America will be more united in this coming time. It's a bit like probably through the Depression. We didn't live through that, or a big war. But people, we had an earthquake around here, the big one a year ago. That's quite a shaking thing. Neighbors who never say hello to each other are saying hello to each other. And I'm finding the same thing now. I live in a neighborhood that I would say wouldn't be overly friendly. People don't say hello generally. But most people are now. And there's just a bit more care. So I just feel like, imagine, take that on a bigger level. And then when I have conversations, and I've got some good friends, I don't vote. I'm a green card holder, so I'm not allowed to vote, which I think is stupid. But anyway, I can't change that law. But when you get in kink, you can change that law.
Okay.
In Australia, if you pay taxes, you vote. You don't have to be a citizen. I pay taxes, why can't I vote? But anyway,
so if I move to Australia, even if I'm not a citizen, if I pay taxes, I can vote?
Yeah.
All right.
That's right. But, get your money's worth. So anyway, that's one thing I would ask to change. But that kind of concept of being engaged in conversation with people who think differently. Okay, if I did vote, I would vote towards the left, because I come from a country where our right-wing party is still left of your left-wing party. So we don't. I think you have two right-wing parties. In my eyes, that sounds horrible. Horrible. And that's how I see your American politics. And so I'm honest when I say those things, but I find that people now are a little bit more open to. Okay, like I explained the Bernie Sanders socialism concept to some very staunch Republicans, and I just said, well, in Australia, anybody can go to college. It doesn't cost you a lot of money. Anyone can go. If you pass the exam, you don't have to be rich. Everybody gets health care. There's almost no homeless people. Yes, and you pay what looks like a bit more taxes, but in the end, it's not, because we don't have all these sales tax. You don't pay your own health things. So in the end, it kind of equals out. But it's not saying it's right or wrong or better or worse, but there are some things America can learn from other countries. And I think right now, I'm hearing an openness to that, which wasn't there before A, COVID, and B, Trump, because I'm not a Trump fan at all, but I think his disruption his disruptive nature, because I'm a fan of disruptive technology. That causes change. I think his disruptive politics will actually help to bring about good change. It sounds harsh, but I just think it's true.
Australia is one of the nations. I'm showing a picture now of, or I'm going to show a picture of Godzilla, and we use Godzilla as the example of what we need to do to the virus. And Australia and Canada, of course, already did this. They shut the country down, they paid people to stay home, and they waited until the cases dropped. And they tracked down anybody who was sick, and they have been very successful. And we've talked about that multiple times. So I think it would be wise for the United States. And, one of the difficulties, by the way, that I have noticed, Australia is free of the disease right now. Australians are able to go...
Sort of.
Yeah, pretty much mostly, aren't they?
Yeah, I think New Zealand's probably the better example. They have football stadiums in rugby. It's full of people. I think they had 19 deaths total.
Right, but I spoke to someone who's living in Australia now. In fact, it was Jerry Beckley from the group America, and he mentioned that they can go out and about. They don't really have.
Oh, true. Yeah.
He's in Sydney, I believe, and they can go out and about. They can go out to dinner. They can do various things. But the Australian economy relies so much on people visiting, and that's all shut down. Something like 70% of the economy relies on visitors and their tourism, and that's shut down. And so that means that the damage that President Trump has done to America by allowing 155,000 people to die and never being willing to take care of this virus, it's affecting the entire world economy and may bring the entire world economy to its knees. So we're certainly on the way towards that.
It is, but let me say one thing about the tourism thing. When Joe, and I don't know the exact thing that Joe Biden said, but it's about, what I'm getting by America, or, that whole thing about the next thing we're going to invest, if we all help each other buy American products. They maybe have that wrong, but in New Zealand and Australia and other countries, this sort of thing, New Zealand actually had a thing when they closed the borders down, and tourism, I think, is even more so for New Zealand. Mm. So the government reached out to him and said, so can everybody have a vacation in New Zealand? Go and see somewhere you haven't seen. When I was speaking to some New Zealand friends, they got excited because normally they would come to LA. That would be that big trip of the year. And now they're going to go out and spend the money in New Zealand. And so that kind of mentality is something that America as a 50 states needs to engage in as well. Instead of complaining like, okay, how can we put the money back in the economy? Where can I go? I can go to Alaska for vacation or something like that. It's a big change because I think the big difference, and it might sound harsh, but American, we're taught or told as you're a kid, you could be a president. It's all about me. In Australia, New Zealand doesn't have that ambitious nature as much. They would actually think it'd be rude to think I could be. Who do you think you are by saying that? But you tend to have a collective kind of group. It's easier to get a group together to fight a cause. Here I find that it's been less so. I think this is what's going to change. I think Americans will get together more. And we can do this together. How do we do this together? It's just right now a struggle. And some people don't want to wear a mask, and then some people do, and then that's an argument. To me, that doesn't happen in Australia. We need to wear a mask. We all got to wear a mask because we've got to do this. That's how we're going to, even if it's silly, if that's what could help, okay, let's try to do that. Anyway, I think that's what is going to change here. It's just a struggle. You've been raised all your life to independently think, but the community is how we're going to change the world when the community works together. Anyway, there's my soapbox.
No, that's exactly right. That the more we are willing to do things for our neighbors, and by the way, my neighbors, a lot of them voted for President Trump, but my neighbors are the salt of the earth, and they would stop whatever they're doing to help me with a problem that I had. They are, they would look out for me. They will help me with doing anything. And so it's not like that mindset isn't available here. We just yet so far haven't applied it. Chris, stay on for just a moment. I'm going to share something. I'm going to show here. This is an article in the New Yorker, and it says President Trump signs executive order banning the month of November. So I guess it does. Pam sent that to me, saying that we all need to laugh. So everybody, please take care of yourselves. Chris, I'm so happy you were able to be here with us. I really appreciate it. You know, we have a job here, and we need to convince the world that we've got to go Godzilla on this virus. We've got to do what we need to do to fix things here. We're going to be back to next Monday at 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern, and I've kept you all a little bit late, so you're going to be late to Governor Beshear's broadcast, but thank you all for being here. You all make the difference, and you know, this running for Congress thing is not something you can do by yourself. You need the support of everyone. If you're able to send a little bit of money, in fact, I have to thank Barbara, who chips in rather regularly. Barbara sends some money. I think no one has sent money more often than Barbara, and I really want to thank her. Oh, by the way, I have another sound to play for you all, and this is from a dear friend in the 2nd District. And Cindy Braun, by the way, Chris, says, thank you so much for being here. I've got a new sound, which is when we hear something we think is a little bit crazy. This is Chris Kubali from Boyle County over in Danville.
Now wait just a damn minute.
That's Chris. We'll be using that here and there, Chris Kubali. All right, well, thank you all for being here. We're going to, as always, show you the picture of Godzilla, and I'm going to play a little bit of music on the way out. Thank you all for being here, and we'll see you next week. This is Getting Angry. When you get angry, use it to build up some fortitude to do the right thing.